Imagine that you're on a plane and there's a baby crying loudly right next to you. The flight attendant is shouting over the speakerphone loudly. There's a lady who continues to talk to her daughter on her cell phone at the same time that it's on speakerphone. You're sitting in the middle seat. There's a child right behind you. And what are they doing? They're kicking it nonstop. Your partner, who you're flying with, is saying to you, sorry, we can't switch seats. What would you do? How would you feel? Imagine if this was your life every day. This constant feeling of anxiety, overwhelmed, not sure what to do. That's what autism feels like. Anxious and unsure what to do. Many people with autism experience this on a regular basis. This kind of anxiety-induced environment gives a little insight into what autism can feel like daily. Hi, my name is Katrell, and the point of this video is to highlight the ways to help neurotypical people communicate with autistic individuals, what to say and what not to say, and allow you a chance to hear about autism from autistic voices. So, what is autism? According to CNN.com, 1 in 68 Americans is diagnosed with autism currently. Autism is a range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication, as well as by unique strengths and differences, according to the Autism Society. What does that mean? Is that any one of our peers could have the diagnosis. And what I hope to do today is to bring awareness and to the autistic view and our shared world. Autism is not about inabilities, but that autistics interact with the world through a different ability. So let's lay down some helpful tips for you so you can fully appreciate and communicate with those who are awesome on a different level. When you think of verbal and nonverbal communication, you probably think of the term body language, and the image comes to mind of a tongue flailing a million miles a minute. For an autistic person, verbal and nonverbal communication can be much more involved than just speech itself. What are some ways neurotypical peers can be helpful in communicating with their autistic peers in a verbal way? Many autistic individuals can be either verbal or nonverbal, depending on where they are on the spectrum. Does this mean they can't understand if they're not verbal? Not at all. Just because someone is unable to speak in the same method that you do doesn't mean they don't have anything to say. Some who are even considered verbal need time to process the things that are being said to them. One way to limit any confusion when it comes to speaking with an autistic person is to silently count to 5 to yourself to give them ample time to respond. According to the National Autistic Society, we'll call it NAS, they suggest to pause in between spoken words and phrases to give the person time to process what has been said and to give them an opportunity to think of a response. So the counting to 5 is just a measure to help both you and the autistic individual to communicate together. Autistic adults are not children. Just because someone has autism doesn't mean they should be treated or spoken to in a way that is out of the ordinary. Speak clearly, and if it helps the autistic person, slow down a little bit. Of course, verify with the autistic person that they need you to slow down. The best way to learn something about autistic people is to ask them. The following rhyme can remind you of these ideas. Say less and stress. Go slow and show. Sussman, 1999. This rhyme was suggested may help you to remember that it's necessary to learn different communication skills to make for a more inclusive world. For example, say you're discussing a topic like your favorite movie. I'll use my example. My favorite movie is Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Giving a full synopsis is not necessary. Make a statement like, I really enjoyed this movie. Aslan the lion is the hero that saves the 4 children in the story from the witch. Keep it simple and reiterate the main points. When asking an autistic person a question or you're discussing an issue, be blunt, and depending on the autistic person, you will know if they caught on to what is going on. Sarcasm hasn't escaped the autistic world, so be ready. They may just surprise you. Although, not everyone on the spectrum will comprehend sarcasm or jokes. Remember, when you've met an autistic person on the spectrum, you've met one person on the spectrum, not an entire community. When it comes to verbal communication, make an effort to realize that autistic people are human too. So when I mentioned being blunt earlier, that doesn't mean just say whatever comes to your mind. Think before you speak. If the autistic person is uncomfortable in a situation or prefers a different direction of the conversation, acknowledge that and oblige them. What are some nonverbal cues when communicating with someone who is autistic? Have you ever had someone who just stood too close to you or too far back? Have you reached out to touch someone before and the response was a hand up or a body lean away? Some persons on the spectrum do not like to be touched. It's not because they dislike you, but that in fact at times touch can be painful or an overload on the sensory area of the brain in autistic persons. NAS, National Autism Society, states a person who struggles to deal with everyday sensory information can experience sensory overload or information overload. Too much information can cause stress, anxiety, and possibly physical pain. This can result in withdrawal, challenging behavior, and meltdowns. When you're talking with someone, often you'll want to remain or engage in some form of eye contact. For the autistic person, this is not always the case. Often, an autistic peer will negate eye contact. According to Autism Speaks, an organization that is a support to those on the spectrum, mentions why eye contact is difficult. In many cases, they describe being further distracted and unable to focus on the conversation because of this insistence. So, allowing the autistic individual the ability to communicate without eye contact is more of a social boost than an apprehension, depending on the autistic person. There are many methods of communication, and at times there are those who are on the spectrum who may use an augmented device. If an autistic person is using an iPad or any other device to communicate, be aware that they are giving you their voice and respect them. Understand that just because it's not a vocal sound doesn't mean it's not valid. Ask questions and treat them with respect as you would anyone else. The National Autistic Society, NAS, speaks on this issue and how to accommodate the person's choice of language output. Autistic people who have no spoken language sometimes resort to challenging behaviors to meet their needs and express their feelings. The use of an AAC device can give them a primary means of social communicative interactions with others. This can even include things for PECS, Picture Exchange Communication System. It's communicating using a pictured card to request or express something. Sign language, communication boards, a board comprised of words, photos, and symbols, communication cue cards, reminders on how to communicate their needs, conversation books that use text, pictures, and photographs to support conversation, and voice output aids, iPad and Big Mac, not the hamburger. These are computers comprised of symbols and sayings the individual uses to communicate. Lastly, but certainly not least, stimming. Stimming is a form of self-controlling behavior in some autistic persons. This can be seen in forms of flailing of their hands, eye blinking, and loud, high-pitched sounds, or spinning things, just to name a few. What may seem odd to you is calming to them. If you've ever found a stress relief that works for you, like yoga or stretching, no one looks at you funny while you engage in these activities. So respect the stim, and if you have a calming method, join in and see how much stimming may help you. According to the stimmingchecklist.org, the stim is used to regulate emotional, sensory, social, and pragmatic regulation when it comes to helping the autistic individual manage their own needs to manage their bodies. Here's 5 things not to say when speaking with an autistic person and what to say instead. Number 1, I'm sorry. When someone states you're autistic and you say I'm sorry, it makes them feel isolated or as if there is something wrong. Nothing is more annoying or hurtful than to feel that you shouldn't exist, as if autism is the whole package and they are not able to function otherwise. What to say? I'm new to autism. Can you tell me more about it? Number 2, you don't look autistic. Autism doesn't have a look. You're thinking of Down syndrome. What to say? I'm interested in hearing more about autism. Are there any behaviors or things specific to autism? Number 3, have you seen the movie Rain Man? Do you have any special powers, or what special ability do you have? Persons with autism are not always unique in the ways that some are able to memorize facts or may have special skills, but labeling and stereotyping them into geniuses is not the reality of everyone on the spectrum. What to say? I'm wanting to learn about what autistic people are able to do. What are some things that you like to do or things that interest you? Number 4, don't move your hands or body like that. Stimming is meant for regulating the autistic person's body. It'll be more beneficial to allow them to stim instead of forcing them to stop. This will only frustrate the individual more, and they will find another route to accomplish their self-regulation that could be more harmful than the original stims. So respect the stim. What to say? Does moving your body that way make you feel more comfortable? Do you like to dance? Or why do you flap your arms that way? How are you feeling right now? Number 5, you are retarded. The term is autism, and retarded is an outdated term that is seen as offensive and unwelcome. What can you say? What would you like to be referred as? Most likely, they'll say their name, and that's all that needs to be said. Autism is not a person, it is a diagnosis. The person has a name, so learn it if you can. Now that we've gotten past the tips, let's talk about some awesome people we have who have a voice that needs to be heard. Dr. Temple Grandin is a famous writer, advocate for autism, inventor, and a professor of animal science at Colorado State University, who happens to have autism. According to Dr. Grandin, how autism helps her is, I think, in pictures. Words are like a second language to me. I translate both spoken and written words into full color movies, complete with sound, which runs like a VCR in my head. When somebody speaks to me, his words are instantly translated into pictures. Language-based thinkers often find this phenomenon difficult to understand. But in my job as an equipment designer for the livestock industry, visual thinking is a tremendous advantage. Grandin. During one of her interviews, she explained how autism drove her success. She was asked by Medscape, would you have achieved what you have if you were not autistic? Dr. Grandin responded, I don't think so, because there was a motivation that I had that a non-autistic person doesn't have. And I had a visualization skill that goes beyond what most people have. When I designed a piece of equipment, I could actually test run it in my head, like these virtual reality computer programs. And I didn't even know that other people couldn't do this. That's the positive side of autism. Alexis Weinman, an 18-year-old from Cut Bank, Montana, competed in the Miss America pageant 2013 in Las Vegas. Alexis Weinman is the first autistic woman to compete for the Miss America pageant in pageant history. Her platform in the pageant is simple. Normal as just a dryer setting. Hall. Alexis described her life with autism as socializing with my classmates even when I wanted to was awkward, to say the least. I wouldn't get their jokes half the time. I took everything so literally, said the Cut Bank Mont resident, Alexis Weinman. Yet, that didn't stop her from wanting to try for the title to be Miss America. Weinman had previously won Miss Montana and wanted to not only win Miss America, but bring awareness. In her own words on autism support, she stated, I've noticed that people who support autism do it in many different ways. One of the big things I can say is don't freak out when someone disagrees with you. That is very important for self-advocates. Just ignore what these people say and try to be the best you. We can all do things. My parents were the only ones who told me that I could go out there and do something growing up. Now, with the pageant, all of America knows I can. And it's been one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Carly Fleshman, a nonverbal autistic woman who found her voice, or better yet, found the way to make others realize she had one, gives her view on it as a nonverbal autistic person. Carly is considered to be severely autistic, but she uses her computer to express her mind. According to an article featured on ABC News, Carly states what it's like being nonverbal and autistic. You don't know what it feels like to be me when you can't sit still because your legs feel like they are on fire, or it feels like 100 ants are crawling up your arms. It is hard to be autistic because no one understands me. People look at me and assume I am dumb because I can't speak. Being nonverbal and unable to reach others even after years of therapy, one day Carly brought the world to her fingertips and she typed it one letter at a time. ABC.com illustrates that exact moment that Carly gained her voice. One day, 3 years ago, when Carly was 11, she was working with two of her therapists when she started to feel sick. Unable to communicate what she needed, she ran to a computer and began to type for the first time. First, she typed the word H-U-R-T, hurt, and then H-E-L-P, help. Then she threw up. Her therapists were shocked. They had never specifically taught her those words, and they wondered where she had learned them. Carly wants others to know I am autistic, but this is not who I am. Take time to know me before you judge me. I am cute, funny, and I like to have fun. Carly, by using her computer to communicate, now had power over her world, and she isn't shy about expressing her desires and frustrations. She says to naysayers and the disbelievers, I want people to know that no one is telling me what to say, and I don't have a hand up my butt like a puppet. When it comes to autism and the struggles or successes of the diagnosis, remember to see the person first and the diagnosis second. So how different are we from autistic people? We aren't. Autistic people live, go to school, and work right next to you every day. They get married, hold degrees, and have even invented many of the things we use today. Just think, without autistic people around, you wouldn't have Bill Gates, the inventor of the iPhone, Satoshi Tajiri, inventor of Pokemon, and if you know your ABCs in 1, 2, 3, that's in part to Jim Henson, if you were a Sesame Street fan. Autistic persons want the same thing anyone wants: education, respect, acceptance, and to be heard. To me, autism is a different ability, not a disability. As a parent with 2 children on the autism spectrum, learning to communicate with my son is important in reaching their world and meeting them on their terms. I don't have all the answers, but if we all try to learn, accept, and love one another, we can tear down the misconceptions of autism and build bridges instead. I hope that this video has proved helpful and sparks your interest in getting out there and meeting all the different people in our world, both here at JCCC, at home in your neighborhood, and around the world. Communication breaks that barrier that ignorance and stereotypes helps create. I'm Katrell Westbrook, and I encourage you to stay open-minded and always be courageous. Thanks for watching.